To Live Your Dream, the Garth Aaron Feeney story. On April 6, 1973, a gift was given to David Garth and Judy Feeney. It was their first child, and what joy did it bring? Who knew that this child that was so intelligent, so energetic, and so loving would someday touch the hearts and lives of countless people around the world? Who knew that this little boy would do what few people ever do, to live their dream? From the earliest years, Garth was filled with life, which often led his parents to wonder, and sometimes fear, what this creative child was going to do next. At the ripe age of 4 years old, Garth and his best friend Jeff would dress up in different costumes and perform skits for an imaginary television audience located somewhere behind the family's video camera. Although these often hilarious vignettes never hit the airwaves, they were filled with dramatic scenes of cowboys and Indians and brought a few chuckles to their studio audience.
There is a book called The Strong-Willed Child, and that was my son. And thank goodness it was very, very helpful with him, because from the time he was very, very little, he had a real mind of his own, and he knew what he wanted to do, and was always a smart little boy. He knew his alphabet and could write it and read it, and by the time he was 4, and you knew he was going to do well.
He was a goer, he was a doer. He didn't sit around. No grass grew under his feet.
The teachers loved him, and the first thing they said to me is, has he ever been tested for the gifted program?
Garth was a curious and amazingly active young man, and as with many boys his age, he experienced his share of mishaps.
It's funny because so many things happened to him before he was 2 years old. He had mono. He fell down a flight of stairs and bit through his tongue and had to have his tongue stitched back on again. Anything Garth did, he always did with his head.
When he was 11 years old, he had gone up to spend a weekend with my parents. He was up using someone else's bicycle, and it had hand brakes instead of foot brakes that he was accustomed to. And as he was coming down a hill, he went to put the brakes on and obviously didn't realize and ended up hitting a car. And he split his head wide open. And they said just on the outside alone, they had over 52 stitches going from, front to back. Anyhow, he made it through, and then he was bound and determined.
However, from that experience, he learned a great lesson of life: how to overcome pain and adversity. Garth grew to be a positive and confident young man. He often displayed this confidence in the organized sports in which he played.
He's always been very, very involved in sports, and always has excelled in any sport that he was in. In fact, to this day, I can't think of a team that he was on that finished any lower than second in anything that they did. I mean, they were always like, the county champion or league champion.
Garth was an outstanding athlete. At a very young age, he participated in many organized sports teams. In fact, from the very first week of soccer practice, the coach labeled him as the best player on the team. Garth had a passionate drive to be the best at everything he put his mind to. In fact, every time Garth would return from college, his twin brothers Michael and Matthew would challenge him to a 2-on-1 basketball game, and every time, Garth would win.
When he was here, he was also a lifeguard, and he did swim lessons. And he built up a rapport with all of these young kids that just absolutely loved him. And when he left for Penn, I remember on his bulletin board that when he got up there, he had a drawing from about this big of, trees and sun and all kinds of things. And it was from Mandy, who was, this little girl that he had given swim lessons to.
This determination also drove him to build relationships with other students and have an active part in the leadership of East Lake High School.
He was part of Federation of Christian Athletes, Junior Achievement, National Honor Society as a junior. He was the treasurer of the National Honor Society. He was Mu Alpha Theta. He was, the academic team. He was on that for 2 years.
And the thing is, once he made a friend, they were friends for the rest of his life.
He was interested in what the individual was all about, not where they were from
or anything. I mean, you know,
what they're, you know.
I mean, his best friends in high school, one was Jewish, one was, you know, from Iraq, one was from, you know, a Baptist from, you know, northern Florida.
Not only did Garth play an active part in the social life of his school, he also excelled in his academic endeavors.
And when he was in New Jersey, he participated in a Latin competition and took a silver medal in the Latin competition. It seemed like anything and everything that he did, he excelled. Out of a class of 400 and some, he was number 6, and he was very upset because he really had hoped to be even higher than that. I figured 6 isn't too bad, so. He and his friends, there were about 5 or 6 of them, they were all going to be engineers. And they had done engineering competitions and, you know, projects in school and things like that. And out of the 5, he was the only one that actually became an engineer. The rest of them, you know, went into a different line of work. He looked at different schools for their engineering programs and ended up going to University of Pennsylvania, and then once he was there, he realized that business was also something he was interested in. Again, he over-excelled and, you know, participated in so many things in college too. He was the undergraduate representative to the Board of Trustees. He was the undergraduate representative for the engineering school. He wrote for the paper. He was a dorm counselor. He did Habitat for Humanity. He tutored an illiterate adult 1 night a week. He was on their security, campus security staff. He established a program for children in the community. He actually lived for 2 years in a place right on campus called the Castle, and in order to live there, one of the requirements was that you participate in community service. So he did that for, you know, for 2 years. So along with carrying, and he never carried any less than 20 credit hours a semester, and so he graduated from Penn with a dual degree in systems engineering and entrepreneurial finance.
Although he led a fun yet busy life at college, his heart remained close to home. Almost every weekend, Mom or Dad would hear that famous and endearing sound, "What's up?" on the phone line, and it would always brighten their day.
He would come home every holiday that he could. The first few years, he came home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. He would try and make it home at Easter time if he could. We would always make at least one trip to New York so that we could see him and spend, you know, maybe a week or so up there with him at that time.
After graduating from the university, Garth began his career as a consultant with Booz, Allen, and Hamilton's Information Technology Group, where he had the opportunity to work with firms such as American Express, Merrill Lynch, and NBC. His responsibilities were to define business strategies, new business creation, and operations projects. His next position was with Rare Medium E-commerce Services Company as an associate partner, and on September 18, 2000, he joined Data Synapse, an internet services firm based in New York City. He became their director of business development.
At work, they said, you know, he was just amazing. I can't explain his work because I never really understood it, and one of them has to do with airtime. I don't know what that means, but he had gone out and contacted AT&T, correct?
I'm sure that
I think it was
Peter told us which one it
I
was.
think it was AT&T, and he was instrumental in bringing that project to the company.
Little did the Feeneys know that one fateful morning, on the 11th of September, 2001, their lives would never be the same.
We got up in the morning and Garth was outside sitting and reading the paper, and I happened to turn on Good Morning America, which I watch every morning, and it was about 8:45, and they broke in with the special that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. And I walked outside and I told Garth, that I said, plane just hit the World Trade Center. And at the time, they didn't think much of it, obviously. If we go back to that day. And no sooner did I mention it to him, I stepped inside and the phone rang. And it was, he called. And the first thing, I was giving him a hard time because he hadn't called that weekend. And he said, hi. And I said, well, hi. And he said, no, Mom. He says, it's not that kind of hi. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I'm in the World Trade Center. And he said, a plane has hit the building. And I said, please tell me that you're on one of the lower floors. And he said, no. He says, I'm on the top. He said, I'm in a room with 70 other people, and they have the doors closed to keep the smoke out. And he said, I just wanted to call you and tell you where I was and that I love you. And that was it. And I didn't get a chance to even mention it or give the phone to his father so he could say something to him. And that was the last that I heard from him. We just kept watching and hoping that he made it down fast enough. Obviously didn't.
You don't want to bury your son. You want your son to bury you. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I'm here. And this kid was everything that any father, mother, or father would ever want. He did it all. He had so much to give. Gave a lot. Had so much to give. He was a good son. He was a great man. He's a great citizen. And how, why, how we'll never figure that out. But to bury your son is very difficult.
At his memorial service, over 850 friends and family members from all around the world celebrated the life of Garth Aaron Feeney.
Mr. Feeney, 28, who was at a conference at Windows on the World on September 11th, tutored an illiterate adult, established a program for poor children, worked for campus security, was a dorm counselor, a representative on the university's board of trustees, and worked for Habitat for Humanity. Even after he moved to New York, he kept up the pace of his activities. He was a rock climber, a scuba diver, a kayaker, and an avid inline skater.
Garth will be dearly remembered by his parents, his twin brothers Michael and Matthew, his girlfriend of 3 years, Mercury, and by all whose lives were enriched by this amazing young man as he lived his dreams.